Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I've done shows all day. I don't know what show this is. I'm trying to get in a certain stride to figure out how I'm going to do this in regards to a format. I've been doing this more recent. I've been trying to make this more of a part-time gig. And in trying to make this more of a part-time gig, I'm trying to be more consistent with doing these. I haven't determined whether I'm not going to do these just during the daytime, not so much at night, or a combination of day and night, or a combination of just whenever the mood strikes. I don't know. Right now, I know my motivation is to do videos, and I enjoy doing videos, so I'm doing videos. So I saw this story, and I thought it was a big deal, so I'm going to do the story. But before I get to the story, Monday night at 7, Hard Bastard is going to be here. That should be an amazing show. Hard Bastard is fucking awesome. I apologize profusely that he wasn't able to come yesterday, I'm sorry. I was ill the day before, and the day just kind of spiraled out of control. But nevertheless, he'll be here on Monday. Big thanks to Grant Cameron. He was here yesterday. Also, I want to thank everybody for the show. Somebody, Wesley, did something very nice on the last show. He gave me a very nice super chat. Super chat. Still shocked by it, if I'm being honest. I do the show. I think when I started the show, I started it because there was something in me that wanted to get out. And I don't mean that in a cheesy way or in a I don't mean that in a cheesy way. I just mean in somewhat of a literal way. I would bug the shit out of my wife. I was bugging the shit out of my mom. I was bugging the shit out of whoever I talked to. And at a certain point it became, all right, I am overloading these people with conversation. Maybe I need to do this somewhere else. In which case I started doing it just sitting in the car talking to the cell phone. And then one day I was like, I think I'm going to try this, sit the cell phone on this thing, and I'm going to try a desk. And one little thing after the next, and it just kind of builds up to where you are. All of it started just as this impetus of wanting to get stuff out. Then I started to think to myself, well, you have someone with a platform. You started talking about it. What do you want to do with the platform? I want to give context to the larger news stories. So that's what I did. I didn't look at it as one thing or the next. I think at some point it became, okay, you enjoy doing this. This seems like it's something. Keep it going and be consistent with it and see if people will come. Not just see if people come, see if people would, see if you could change minds. Like, see if you could bridge the gap. Like, there's an assumption on the left, and particularly in Democrat circles, that there are some people that are somewhat unreachable. Like, some people would vote for Trump, or some people would go to the Republican side, or some people would slant more libertarian, and they act like those people are unreachable. When we're having talks about the election, you're talking about 50% of the public don't vote. They pretend as if that 50% is just unreachable. You know, they just don't vote. Can't do anything about it. It's just the most natural thing in the world that half of the country doesn't vote for the representative. That's not bizarre. Like, that's so weird that your political calculus completely excludes half of the country. My thought was, if you look at these issues and you be honest about the issues, you don't take a side. Just be honest about the issues. Yes, Republicans are repugnant. Yes, Democrats, to me, also are repugnant. Just be honest with the quantities that you deal with. If at the very least, someone who looks at me knows I'm trying to be honest when I'm looking at what I'm looking at, and that my standard doesn't change, my stake is on the ground, this kind of humanistic perspective. I don't like war. I don't like us fucking over people. I think human beings are more important than profits. And that stake is there in the ground. It's not changing. There will be some issues where people would disagree with me, but my stake hasn't changed. My argument is always going to be from that particular stake that's in the ground in that way. It's not a mode of thought meeting. I'm not talking to you about just being a communist or socialist or whatever. It's my stake is on the ground on a humanist perspective. That's where it is. That's what I explain. That's how I relate to the world. Whether we're talking about Russia, whether we're talking about the UK, whether we're talking about Germany, whether we're talking about the United States, doesn't matter to me. That's where my stake in the ground is. my feeling was if people at the very least knew where I was coming from and knew I wasn't necessarily coming from them in a biased way, at least not in a bias other than the stake that I have in the ground, that maybe they'll give me the benefit of the doubt. That was my thought. Didn't necessarily know if that was going to work. Didn't necessarily know if people were unreachable, all those things. But what I found, there are Trump supporters on my page. There are people that voted for Trump on my page. There are people who lean libertarian on my page. And they give me a fair hearing. They don't always agree with me. I don't need people to always agree with me. But at least they give me a fair hearing. I would get these emails from people who are like, dude, I am as far to the right as they get, and I'm digging some of the stuff that you're saying. Look, I think part of this is, and this is, we'll deviate from the point, I'm sorry. But I think part of this is trust. Honestly, I think a large part of this is trust. Meaning, if you're watching Rachel Maddow, you already know what Rachel Maddow is going to say. It's a canned response. It's whatever the Democratic Party needs Rachel Maddow to say. Meaning, if Donald Trump says he wants to have peace talks with North Korea, Rachel Maddow is going to say, oh my God, Donald Trump is trying to have peace talks with Korea. If Obama says we should have talks with Iran and North Korea, which he did, Rachel Maddow would go out and say, look at Obama saying peace talks. That is a good thing. That is a president who's looking for peace. If Obama said he's going to talk to North Korea, Sean Hannity would come out and say, oh, look at this idiot going and talk to North Korea. If Donald Trump says he's going to talk to North Korea, Sean Hannity would be out there saying, congratulations to Donald Trump. They're canned responses. When a Democrat opens his mouth, you know what he's going to say. When a Republican opens his mouth, you know what he's going to say. They're canned responses. I'm making this point that there is something fundamentally different about having somebody just say, both of these people are bought, both of these parties are repugnant and looking out for their own best interests and their donors. And this is the reality of the situation that you find yourself. There's something different when a news person looks at the news and gives you context, not just from the perspective of the United States, but also from the perspective of the other people involved in the conflict. Both could be right, both could be wrong, it could be somewhere in between. I try to be straight with you when I give it to you. And I like doing that. Like, when I think about it, I enjoy doing that. And just so happen, there seems to be people who enjoy me doing it also. So, you guys are immensely appreciated. I mean, that's a long way to say it, but you guys are immensely appreciated. And Wesley, thank you very much. Thank you very much. To the story itself. This guy, look at this guy. That gentleman, his name, he's a senator named John Kennedy. Take a look at this mug. Get a real good look at that mug. Senator John Kennedy is a sneaky fella. And when I say sneaky fella, what I mean by this is he is introducing a net neutrality bill. Now, it's not really a net neutrality bill. It's a fake net neutrality bill, but he wants you to believe that it's an actual net neutrality bill. What the bill would do is it would enshrine certain features, things, he would say protections, but it's protections that the ISPs don't really care about. Like, the ISPs are not necessarily interested in blocking a particular site or throttling in a particular way. What they want are fast lanes. Now, this particular bill would say they can't throttle, that's great. And they can't do something else, that's great. But it says nothing about the fast lanes, meaning it would still allow certain lanes to be faster than others. He would enshrine that into law, blocking any state that wanted to do something to protect that particular feature. Meaning, the law, he's coming out with a bill that says, yes, this is going to be a net neutrality bill, but he's missing the actual thing that people need and what they're talking about when they're talking about a free and open internet. It is a fake net neutrality bill. Let's take a look at it. This is Motherboard. Senator introduces fake net neutrality bill by ISPs to then pretend he's fighting against them. The bill, introduced by Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, mirrors legislation that has been pushed in the House that would enshrine the ability for ISPs to screw you over. Now, if you read this in the Hill gives you a false story. I don't know if the Hill hadn't looked into it, but the Hill gives you somewhat of a false story. GOP senator offers his own net neutrality bill. It is a fake net neutrality bill. Let's look at Motherboard. ISPs continue to push for fake net neutrality legislation in hopes of preventing tougher state or federal rules from taking root. The FCCs Fall repeal of net neutrality doesn't rest on particularly sound legal footing. By law, the FCC has to prove that the broadband market changed so dramatically to warrant such a severe reversal of popular policies implemented just a few years ago, something it'll have a hard time accomplishing given the overwhelming bipartisan public support for it. Because understand, there was like 80 or 90% of the people saying, don't change it. The overwhelming majority of the United States, of 300 million people, said don't change it. One guy made the determination after a year or two of making a previous determination that they needed to make a change. The only change that took place was that Donald Trump took office. That was the only change. And at that point, he was emboldened to do what he wanted to do early on, which was kill net neutrality and allow ISPs to screw people over. Let's keep going. I just want to make the point that the entirety of the public was against this. He did it anyway. There was nothing in the market that required it. He did it anyway. The only people that were going to gain from this were the ISPs. The point something percent, 0.001%. Let's keep going. The agency will also have to account for the shady behavior that occurred during the agency proceeding, including all of the dead people that mysteriously voiced their support for the FCC's blatant handout to one of the least competitive industries in America. All those dead people. You know the last time you heard something about all those dead people? When Democratic operatives were using dead people in Twitter accounts. Remember that? That was a story that just came up. I don't think Democrats were doing this. I'm just saying. It was probably bots. So let's keep going. Understandably, fearing that the FCC effort might not survive a court challenge by Mozilla, consumer groups, state attorney generals, and others, ISPs have a backup plan. They've convinced ISP loyal lawmakers like Marsha Blackburn to support fake net neutrality legislation that could actually make the problem worse. Blackburn's misleading name Open Internet Preservation Act, introduced in the House last fall, bans behaviors that the ISPs weren't really interested in anyways, such as the outright blocking of certain websites or services, but it intentionally ignores trouble areas where anti-competitive ISP behavior is now actually occurring, such as usage caps, coverage fees, zero rating, and gaming of network interconnection points. Blackburn, a major recipient of ISP's lobbying cash, money in the G-string, claims her legislation would hold ISPs accountable, but the intention is more nefarious. The real goal of such a bill is to preempt the tougher net neutrality rules now taking root across more than half of the states in the nation. That's what's important. Federal law supersedes state law. Just because you have a law in state, if it conflicts with federal law applies. If they pass a federal law on this, it would nullify state law. Let's keep going. Nullify state law depending on what the law is, but it could possibly nullify whatever they pass in the states. In a statement, Kennedy pretended that his bill would somehow upset large ISPs like Comcast, AT&T, and Verizon. Shady SOB. Her bill will also prevent the passage of tougher rules later by a future FCC or Congress less beholden to every whim of the entrenched broadband monopolies. As an added bonus, it would supplant the FCC's current 2015 rules should they withstand a legal challenge this spring. As the FCC court battle grows closer, and ISP policy folk get more nervous about their chances of success, the push for such legislation is only accelerating. This is where you get into how money comes around. Meaning you have ISPs pushing. Who's looking for this? Have you asked that question? Who's looking for this? Who's clamoring in the public? What upswell of support? I didn't see any pitchforks. There was nobody running to their post office. There was nobody running to their governmental center saying, we need to have ISPs get more power. We need them to have more influence. That's what we need. Nobody is saying that. There is one silent voice out of the 300 million people, and that little silent voice are the ISPs that's going to make massive amounts of profit at your expense. They're looking to screw you over through legislation. They believe that the FCC thing is not going to hold up. And as a backup, they're trying to get the senators on board for a plan using the slippery language saying that it's a net neutrality bill when it's actually the opposite. That's what's taking place. John Kennedy, we're about to get to him now, is putting forth similar legislation in the Senate. And he is pretending as if this is a net neutrality bill. Pretending that he's going against the ISP companies while he's doing their bidding. He is lying to you. He is lying to you. Let's keep going. Case in point, Republican Louisiana Senator John Kennedy this week unveiled his own companion net neutrality bill in the Senate. Kennedy's legislation mirrors Blackburn's House version, banning the most heavy-handed net neutrality abuses, which ISPs don't want to do anyway, while ignoring the more elaborate examples of anti-competitive ISP behavior. In a statement, Kennedy pretended that his bill will somehow upset large ISPs like Comcast, AT&T, and Verizon. Some cable companies and content providers aren't going to be happy with this bill because it prohibits them from blocking and throttling web content, said the senator. They won't be able to micromanage your web surfing or punish you for downloading 50 movies each month. Oh, he's fighting back. He's the resistance. He's the resistance. But Kennedy's bill is intentionally full of loopholes. The bill does nothing to thwart anti-competitive abuses of usage caps or zero ratings. And his bill doesn't ban behaviors like paid prioritization, which would allow an ISP to let companies with the deepest pockets get priority on the network, distorting the traditional level of internet playing field. Much like Blackburn, Kennedy tries to argue that his bill is the best stopgap solution available to Americans, and that anybody that doesn't support a bill, very likely ghost-written by ISP lobbyists, aren't serious about protecting the open internet. And again, I just want to nail down what he's saying. Kennedy is putting forth a bill. While he's putting forth this bill, he put in 1 or 2 items saying the ISP is going to hate this. Comcast and AT&T are going to hate this. I'm fighting for America. I'm fighting for America with this ISP. When the truth of it is, this is exactly what the ISPs want. He's leaving stuff out intentionally so they can screw you over. That bill is Orwellian. He is lying to you. That's my point. That's why I'm doing this. Look at this mug. And when you see this mug, you're seeing a man who's trying to get over on you. There's money in his G-string. You can't see it because they're standing behind him. He's wearing a G-string. And they are putting $1,000 bills in his ass cheeks. Senator John Kennedy. Let's keep going. Let's see. The bill strikes a compromise that benefits the consumer, Kennedy proclaimed. If the Democrats are serious about this issue and finding a permanent solution, then they should come to the table and work with me and Representative Blackburn on these bills. Does this bill resolve every issue in net neutrality debate? No, it doesn't. It's not a silver bullet, but it's a good start. No, it's not a good start. It's not any start. The states are working to do something about it. You guys are trying to supersede what the states are doing with a shittier bill. That's what's going on. Unfortunately, ISPs support these legislative efforts has been tepid at best. Unfortunately for ISPs, support for these legislative efforts have been tepid at best. Democrats aren't buying the head fake, instead focusing their efforts on reversing the FCC's repeal via the Congressional Review Act, an effort that faces a steep uphill climb but will require net neutrality opponents to clearly illustrate their disdain for the public ahead of the looming midterms. Consumer groups like Fight for the Future were quick to criticize Kennedy's solution as a Trojan horse proposal ghost-ridden by incumbent telecom monopolies. Louisiana residents, small businesses, and internet users from across the political spectrum asked Senator Kennedy to be a hero, said Fight for the Future Deputy Director Evan Greer. Instead, he stabbed them in the back. He stabbed him in the back. This guy. That guy works for the telecommunications companies. He's supposed to be a Louisiana senator, but he is working for the telecommunications companies. That man's name is Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. Telecommunications company man. Honestly, the senator should resign over this, said Greer. The fact that he thinks his constituents would be fooled by this Trojan horse legislation is insulting. If Senator Kennedy cared one iota about protecting businesses and residents in his state, he would support the Congressional Review Act resolutions to restore net neutrality rules rather than offering a bill that was basically written by Comcast lobbyists and has no chance of passing anyway. You tell him, Greer. In short, the broadband industry goal here isn't a compromise so much as it is the active attempt to prevent real protections, especially on the state level. And the ISP lobbyists grow increasingly nervous about the FCC's chance in court, you can expect the phony drumbeat for this kind of disingenuous net neutrality solution to only grow. To only grow. If you would have stopped at this article, you would have left this thinking that this guy was actually trying to do something noble. This guy was trying to pull a fast one. This guy had a bill, for all intents and purposes, written by a Comcast lobbyist, or at the very least the ISP lobbyists, to try to fake the American public into undermining net neutrality. This guy is working for the ISPs. Here we are. You see it at the very end. Net neutrality supporters are worried that if legislation like Kennedy bill become law, net neutrality rules will be permanently replaced by weaker protections. That is so inadequate to get across what's taking place. That is so inadequate. I mean, it's not that he's passing a bill that's somewhat net neutrality. He's not passing a net neutrality bill at all. They shouldn't call it a net neutrality bill since it's not a net neutrality bill. I mean, I'm not going to bitch. I'm just saying. That's not an actual net neutrality bill. That's a fake net neutrality bill. The Hill should call it what it is. This is somewhat misrepresented in the way the Hill is given the story. It's extremely misrepresented. Just be aware. John Kennedy, he's wearing the name of a great man. He's trying to screw you over. Just to be aware. This is just to be aware. Democrats use leftist, even Marxist language, but then actually support corporate agenda. Yeah, they do. They do. Progressive Voice has a microphone made out of vibranium. His voice will shatter Jamal's equipment with just a few words. What? 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 Moni G is getting fired up. Kennedy might have met his match. Every time we knock the net neutrality bill down and pin down and put it back up, we must understand the nature of conflict. You know, this is somewhat existential, man. I mean, any change that takes place, there's always this kind of corporate capitalist hand reaching out in order to try to pull back whatever change you do. They're trying to get advantage. They always try to get advantage. They always. That's part of the thing. If the left ever takes power again, I think the goal is to break their fingers. Like, you don't want to keep having this fight over and over and over again. At some point, you get and you reorganize the society in a way where you don't have these fights. So this guy is just the Bernie of Louisiana. He's a Republican. That guy doesn't care about anybody but himself. Yeah, he doesn't care about anybody but himself. All right, guys, I'm not going to keep this one long. I've been doing these all day. I think I have one more after this. So I will see you guys in probably about 10 minutes. So thanks, everyone. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.